It's Radio Free 501c, the podcast of Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'm Cecilia Sapp. Don't forget to subscribe on all your favorite podcast services. This week, I'm welcoming my friend and neighbor, Shirley Storms, who is also a multimedia artist, and she's going to share her insights and inspiration on creativity, and she's going to give us a tour of some of her artwork. That's right, it's December 4th, and we're talking creativity. Welcome to episode 220. It's Monday, December 4th. It's the beginning of the winter holiday season, and I'm so glad you're joining us this week for this episode of Radio Free 501c, brought to you by Rogue Tulips Consulting. I'm your host, Cecilia Supp. I'm a CAE and an ACNP, newly minted right before Thanksgiving. So if you'd like to learn more about that credential, check out the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance. This week, we're kicking off the holiday season with my neighbor and friend, Shirley Storms, who's a multimedia artist, and we're going to dive into creativity and what inspires her art. But before we get into the topic, I want to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our global audience, wherever you may be. And thanks once again to everyone for joining us. So, as I mentioned, we're talking about creativity to kick off the holiday season here. So, my friend Shirley Storms, who lives not too far from me, is here to talk about her inspiration and her art. So, Shirley, I'm so glad you could join me. And could you please say hello to our audience and tell us a little about yourself?
Hello, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Well, I am sort of in my third version of me. I got married at 19. I've been a mother. I've been a school teacher. I retired from teaching in 2007. Before that, I had always done lots of fiber art and things, as hobbies, but I had never done anything like what I'm doing now. And I retired in July of 2007. And 4 months later, my husband died suddenly. And so that just sent me on a journey that I'd never lived alone. And I just had to figure out what can I do to keep going. And so it started out, I don't know, I went to a local art store and I said, I want to do collage. And they said, okay. And I said, what do I need? And they said, glue. you know, Really, there's much more to it than that. And it took me a few years to learn about all the different materials and everything. But to me, it feels like it came out of nowhere. It just came to save my life. And everybody who knows me has said, oh, no, it was always there. I just didn't have that avenue for it. So, whatever, I do feel like it saved my life. And I'm excited to share with you.
Oh my gosh, I am so glad too because to the audience, I want to say I have had a tour of her in-home gallery and it is spectacular. And if I had more wall space in my house, I'd probably buy a lot of her pieces. They're wonderful. So now you mentioned something called fiber art. For those of us who are creative through writing, could you explain what
Mhm.
that means?
um, the impetus to make things, I think, was always with me. When I was 7, my mother was pregnant with my brother, and she was crocheting. And I insisted that she teach me. And she was like, no, you're too young, you're too little, you can't do that. So I said, no, I want to learn. So she taught me how to do just the chain stitch and went off to cook dinner. So I don't know, an hour later, I picked up like my 4 miles of chain stitch and went into the kitchen and said, okay, what do I do now?
Oh my gosh.
And all through, I mostly crocheted all through, growing up. I made the little dolls like kids were popular in the 50s. And um, my husband's grandmother taught me to knit so I was like 20, and she just taught me the basic stitches. So I did that. When we first came here to Washington, D.C., was the first time I'd ever had a traditional life where my husband went to work, 9 to 5, because he was a college professor before. And so I decided I wanted to try something new, and I got involved in weaving. So for a while I was a weaver. So everything, yarn was the fiber.
Okay.
And
So it's like yarn and cloth and
yeah,
okay, great. I kind of assumed that, but
sure.
always
Yeah.
good to clarify. So I can see why people have known you much longer than I have would say that it's always been with you. To learn to crochet, to learn to knit, to make dolls. I've tried all those things and I just don't have the knack for it. I like to sketch a little bit, and that's probably
Mhm.
about the extent of my creativity outside of words, but I do love brilliant visual art, which is what you create. So, since we're talking about creativity, how do you define creativity?
Well, I was thinking about that today because I thought you might ask me that question. And I think as a teacher, I saw so much imagination in kids, and I see it in other people, and that always amuses me. When someone thinks of something in a different way, whether it's in a crossword puzzle or whatever. So I think creativity is just imagination kind of put to work. You know, if you do something with it, it doesn't have to be art. It could be cooking, or I have a friend who quit teaching and started a cupcake business. But um, whatever, yeah, and oh, they're amazing. But I just think once you start doing it, and it's to me, it just became something I couldn't stop doing. And I wasn't very good at it in the beginning. None of the pieces I have on my wall, I mean, this is what now, 17, 18 years ago. I've
Okay.
been doing it that long now, but when I started, it was like, well, literally, I need glue.
So, what was the first canvas, for lack of a better term? Because I know with collage, it's not a canvas like a painting, but
Right.
what was your first canvas that you used when you bought your glue?
Um, I started with, because I was, of course, my husband was very much in my mind at that time, and he absolutely loved listening to music. We built an addition on our house that has big stereo speakers in it, um, and as I wanted to do something to honor him, so I did four pieces that related to art, like string quartets, and realized that I can't draw, which so that's why collage works really well for me. If I do something and I don't like it, I can just cover it up and keep going. But so I did four pieces. One was called "Ode to Joy." One was called I remember they're upstairs in my bedroom. I still have them, but that was it. And I put those on the wall in the living room. And then after that, I don't know. My inspiration comes from all kinds of things. I have a sense of humor and whimsy. So sometimes some little thing, if it makes me laugh and I can think of a way to express it, like one of the other things that I did after my husband died is I was searching for a community, and I found and joined the Washington Ethical Society, which is a really interesting humanistic group. And we were there one day, and the person who was speaking said, "I knew from the get go that such and such." And my daughter was with me, and she thought they said, I knew from the get go. And that amused me. That so now I did a piece of art. It's in the living room called "I Heard It from the Gecko." So on the surface, it's just a funny creature. It's made with lots of different glass and interesting materials. But it was kind of like, if you need a new religion, it could be the gecko. It
It
could be
could
the next
be.
one.
I love it. That's great. And for our audience, the Washington Ethical Society, as Shirley mentioned, is based in secular humanism, and it is
Mm-hmm.
very ethically grounded. And as you know,
Mm-hmm.
here at Rogue Tulips Consulting, ethics are one of our most important topics since we teach a course on that. So, and Shirley has given me some good info on the Washington Ethical Society if you want to check that out too. So, Shirley, do you remember their website for the Ethical Society?
No, but it's easy to find. It's on
Okay.
16th Street, and everybody's driven by it a million times. And I drove by it a million times. I used to drive by it and think, what on earth do they do in there? I'll bet it's a lot of old men trying to impress each other. But
Well,
that's not.
I, I don't want to bring down anything on my head, but that sounds more like the Freemasons. But
Yeah.
sorry.
Anyway, it's
Love
been a
the
nice,
Freemasons.
nice community for me. Most of the people that I'm friends with day to day now have come through that, and some of them have needed support, and some of them have given support. And of course, the pandemic was brutal, but we're still hanging in there.
Yes, and I think we're all still crawling out of that hole. Um,
I hope so.
which I think we're looking back at that and
Mm-hmm.
realizing, it probably wasn't the best idea, but we did it. So, it's and we're all I hope, I mean, I learned a lot from it. I hope we all
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot from it. So, well, bringing it back to your art, because I just love your art, as you know. And I did recently ask you about a piece, and you said, well, I like that one. So it's very expensive. So,
Yeah.
uh, so what is it? So, your most recent piece, what were some of the things? Because, I have had the pleasure of a personal tour of your art gallery,
Mhm.
and you have explained to me all the different things you have. So, what is your most recent piece? What did you use in that most recent piece?
Well, I was at the Ethical Society, and one of the songs they sang was the "Searching for a Heart of Gold,"
Oh, yeah.
and that just every now and then, because I was trying to think, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And I listened to the words, and things have so many levels to them. So I decided to make a piece that had all kinds of little hearts in it. Some are right out there, some are um, hidden, and previously the things I had done for the most had been deeply richly colored. So I decided I wanted to stick with neutrals. So I picked, kind of golds and tans and um, cream colors and stuff, which was pretty light. So it's lighter than a lot of my pieces. So I tried to put a lot of texture into it to give it a lot of interest, and I like it. I'm such a lover of color. It may not be my favorite one, but I really like it. And when I just put them on Facebook when I make them, and then my friends see them when they come over. I Years ago I finally gave up trying to figure out how to get my art, hung someplace. So like you say, I have a home gallery. I got a system where I can hang it, where I can move it around all the time without putting new holes in the wall and stuff. So um,
That's great.
before
Well,
that, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I was going to ask you another question, but go ahead. It
Oh,
sounds like you
well,
have more to say.
anyway, if we get a chance, I'll show you the other piece, but it's not as dramatic as like the one before that was also actually a song from the Ethical Society. It was I call it the carousel song, but that's not what it's called. And the ponies go up and down, and I made a carousel with ponies and everything. It would be perfect for a child's room, but because I'm about to turn 80 and a lot of things are going on with friends and stuff, that it's hard to be this age in a lot of ways. So uh, and the carousel song is like you're all stuck on the carousel of life. So it has, to me, it has that meaning. To a little kid it would just be ponies, but they were fun to make. It's pretty, and most of my art has to mean something to me. It's very seldom that I make something that it's either political or about the environment or funny, or silly, but it
Mhm.
has to mean something, or it has a spiral in it.
Yes, you do work a lot with spirals and
Yeah,
circles.
you
I've
can see
noticed
one.
that. Yeah, can you show us that? Oh yeah. So this is a beautiful piece. It almost looks like a nautilus shell
Mm-hmm,
with brown background, and it looks like dots or buttons.
mm-hmm.
So for those who are listening instead of watching, this is a beautiful piece with lots of different symbols and colors on it. So can you tell us, Shirley, what did you use to create this piece of art?
Well, I was given a long of canvas from someone who their a previous partner had been an artist, and that person had died of AIDS, 30 years ago or however long it was. And he had this huge pieces of canvas in his attic, and he asked me if I would like them. I was like, sure, I don't know what I'll do with them, but I'll try it. And so this is actually cut out. I got the shape I wanted, made it out of paper. It's kind of like paper dolls, and then I glued the shape on the canvas because the canvas had different bits of paint on it. I kind of thought it was almost maybe like a drop cloth because they seemed random to me. But he said, no, it was a painting in progress. So like, okay, So the colors on it are mostly, I adjusted them a little bit. But the colors on it are mostly things that were already there. And then I stamped some pictures on top of it. And
That's gorgeous.
so that's where it's just canvas, mostly canvas and paint. A lot of my things are paper, and I like to use different found materials. Like one of my favorite ones when I can get it is broken car glass
Mhm.
because it breaks in like safety glass. And a friend of mine once raced up to me with a present and all wrapped and everything. And he said, "You won't believe what I found." And so I opened it, and she had been passing like a bus enclosure, and it had shattered. And so the pieces of safety glass were like as big as your thumb.
Wow.
And so the box was full of this broken glass. It's like someone really knows me when they know I'd be thrilled to get a box of broken glass, safety glass. Regular glass I leave alone, but
that was my question. What's the most unusual element that you've created art with? Because I was thinking about that story you told me about the safety glass.
well, the glass is one, but I think probably I'm almost hesitant to say that the silliest one I ever did was I was out for a walk and I found a dead, desiccated worm that was just dry, and I made it into a piece that's called Eve Plan B, and she goes back to Eden. She's no longer naked. She's a ballerina. She's beautiful. She gets the apple and she steps on the snake. And I don't really tell people that it's a real worm, because it just looks like something I made. But it's like, I think that has to be the silliest one.
That is wonderful. I love that. Because when I was a little kid, I used to play with insects a lot. I know little girls at least tend not to do that, but I played with worms. I'd bring them in the house. My mom would yell at me, "Get those out." No, that's great. So would you like to show us some of your other art?
I would love to.
Great. Okay. So
I will try to move around.
Need to go on a little tour here. So
I'm here if I can. I'll stand up. Oh. Finding it here.
Oh, great. That's a beautiful piece.
This is, I love ballet, and this is a mermaid who's also a ballerina. And I really like the background of it is blue, kind of bubbly looking. But what I did was I rewrote the Poseidon myth to explain that mermaids are actually ballerinas who Poseidon has invited when they can't dance anymore. They can come down if they choose to. They can come down and be in the ocean and swim and be lovely forever. Because he was sort of a nasty character, but he also made dolphins and horses and stuff like that. So, and he fell in love with his wife when she saw her dancing. So I figured that was perfect. And it could be how mermaids. That's why they're there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's great. Let's see, is there another piece you'd like to show?
Yeah. Right after the Trump election, moving into the other room here. Okay. This is a 4-part piece that's in my kitchen, so I don't know how well I can do it, but I will try.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. So an email was sent to my daughter that basically said, it's not a surprise that many of the values that we've had over time, like wisdom, justice, freedom, are represented in mythology by women. And it was right after the Women's March. And so he said, wisdom, liberty, charity, and justice are the 4 horsewomen of the Enlightenment, and they are pissed. So these are 4 women. They're all very colorful. One is based on Rosa Parks. They all have sort of their hands in the air in some way, because I think that's a very powerful pose. And interestingly, the 4 panels are Black. They were originally panels from that same guy who gave me the canvas. They were, he had given me some canvases that had been printed. I'll go in that room now. They just needed to be painted over. They weren't really, there wasn't anything finished about them or anything. And so somehow that connected me more to the past. And I did a different piece with a similar theme that was on one canvas that he did a really good job on. It was beautiful. I couldn't change it because it was too pretty. So, um, and then I gave that back to the guy who gave me the canvas. So here's the ponies.
So that's the carousel theme you mentioned.
Right. Yeah.
Love that. And they're all different colors. They're brilliant colors. We have yellow, kind of a dark red, a dark green, and a purple.
They're all actually cloth. A friend of mine is a quilter, and she gives me, bits and pieces of cloth. And then, I'll put like the green one with yellow dots on it. I enhance the dots with paint, but the dots were there originally.
Oh,
And
really?
this,
Oh, wow. Yeah, I just said, oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
yeah. And this is the first piece I did with broken glass.
Look at that.
It's a labyrinth. To me, it's about immigration. The glass beads that are around it are the rainbow of people who need a rehoming. And the labyrinth represents the complex journey. And down at the bottom, there are beads that were open-handed. And that means that's how I hoped people would treat immigration. So here's another one that we can, there's two here. This one is the dragon. Her name is Moderna, and she eats little COVIDs. So you know when I made her.
Yes, and I wish you could have eaten them faster. Look at that face.
Little there's some kind of washer, I don't know the name of them, that come from the hardware store with the little ridges around them. So that's what she's eating, one of those. And so that one kind of amuses me. And it's got large wings that are made from an old shower curtain, and a tail that's made from some copper that someone gave me. And a lot of it's paper too. And so I had a lot of fun with that one. And
that is gorgeous. So a shower curtain and paper and washers. And look at that beautiful piece of art. So I think that is inspirational in that we can really create new things and give things new life. You mentioned that you're kind of in your third chapter of life right now. And this is where your art has really grown. So I think it shows that, we can use things differently and our life can change.
Well, and that's part of imagination and creativity, just play with it. And honestly, besides the fact that this happened after my husband died, it happened after I retired. Because in our lives, we just don't have enough time to do those kinds of things. And even I think children today don't have free time just much. They're kind of in classes and things, and all of that's good, but it doesn't leave them time to sit in a tree and wonder,
Right. We're always overscheduled. So are you trying to focus on one of these two pieces?
No,
okay. Oh, this one. Okay.
Yes. This is a little maze I made out of clay, and it was a kind of clay you can bake. I had a plate that had the maze in it, and I pressed the clay in, and then I got it out. And as I took it out, you put it in the microwave, and it's supposed to get hard, and it did. But when I took it out off the plate, it cracked. I'll see if I can move closer.
Oh, there's the crack. Yeah, I see it.
And my first thought was, oh no, I have to do it over again. And then I thought, no, it's much more interesting with the crack in it. So I had a pair of ladybug earrings. So I put them up there, and I called it Carpe Diem.
Beautiful. I love that.
And let's see, one more, because it represents a lot of stories are very important to me. I like to get to know people and, know something about them. So this one is a whole lot of little tiny collages. I'll show you like one, for example. They're actually made on boxes, like the little jewelry boxes and things like that, And I wanted to make a whole bunch of them and assemble them, because this is really assemblage, which is a fancy way of assembling things. And then each one has its own story. A few of them I know, most of them I don't know. Like I included a lovely piece of pottery that I found in New Mexico.
Oh, wow. That's
It was
gorgeous.
a guy on a street vendor. And I don't know who made the pot or how it got broken, or what it meant to people. But I know it meant a little bit of cash to the guy who had it and was thinking somebody will come along who wants a broken piece of pottery. And some things like this, there's a kind of brass square in the middle that was actually the top of a porch light that I had for a while.
Wow.
When the porch light came off, I saved it because I thought I liked it. So, and it's called The Haven of Forgotten Stories. So there's a few things that I know, but everything has a story, whether we know it or not. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
that is so true.
then here's the gecko.
Oh, yes, we have to see the gecko. Let's, there he is. Or maybe
Made
she's a
with
she.
lots of glass, and even some dichroic glass that's sort of like rickrack.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can get closer and show you the textures.
Look at that. Yes, you really do see all. Look at that. That really comes through really well. You really see the 3 dimensions. There's really a lot of layers here.
That's why I say my work doesn't photograph that well, because you just don't see that. And I'm going to go back to where I was started. But when here's, and I'll show this as I'm walking by, might as well.
Oh, look at that one.
This is two pieces based on the same characters, which I don't usually do. But this is an old piece of the tin ceiling tile.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran across it in a antique shop in Texas when I was visiting my brother. And it has, it's clearly got a story. I'll move it into a close up. You can see that it's somewhere here. Here. It's kind of rusted and the paint's peeled on it.
Oh, look at it. Wow.
And it has a certain shape embedded into it. And that one's called Hold On to Me. And it's a line in the song, Hold On to Me, I'm a little unsteady.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, it was COVID art, how I was feeling, it's like I can't even see my friends. And I did one that sold that was just a beautiful hummingbird sipping from a, trying to change this back again, sipping from a flower. And
lovely.
It was just called Hoping to See You Again. That was also COVID art.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And for those of you who are listening, I encourage you to watch the video version of this so you can see these beautiful pieces. And Shirley, what your art always says to me is that things have long-term uses, maybe not in the same way that they were used originally. And especially like that piece you just showed us with the piece of metal from a ceiling, a little bit familiar with that era of architecture. And that's obviously been through some stuff, but at one point it was brand new and shiny, and maybe
that's right. And it had a different purpose, but
yeah. And it's just so lovely. And so you get inspired by so many different things. So I know you have some pieces with old keys and just people give you interesting pieces of glass or rocks or anything just inspires you. So when people talk to you about your art and they ask about creativity, maybe they ask you for advice. What kind of advice do you give people about finding their own creativity?
Oh, just that you have to explore it, have the courage to do it wrong or to not like what you made. A person that worked with me some in the beginning said, you can work just as hard on a piece you hate as on a piece you love. So you need to give yourself a little room. I'm working with a friend now who she just comes over and we just kind of sit and do art. And she would never say she's an artist, but I would have never said I was an artist either. So, but she sees what I see, that when you're doing it, your mind goes someplace else. You don't think about, the hamster wheel kind of stops, and that can be true of reading a book or singing a song or whatever. But for me, it's the visual things. But you have to stick with it. I didn't make this stuff 17 years ago when I started. I used one kind of glue. And right now I have a bedroom upstairs that's my studio. which of course, as I collect all these things, I just shove them in all these drawers. And then when I want to make something, I go look at it. Oh, look at that! I forgot I had that. So,
Oh, interesting. So, do people ask you advice? Do people ask you a lot of advice about how to be an artist or how to be creative?
um, as a fundraiser, the Ethical Society has a really neat auction.
Hmm.
And as a part of the auction, one of the things I have offered to West members is a 1 day workshop where it's an all-day workshop. I teach them all about the materials. I show them. And so people who have a little interest, I'll say, well, do that. The money goes to the Ethical Society, and we have a great time, and we have lunch, and you'll go home with something you made, whether you love it or not. You'll have an opportunity to do it, and every one of them has worked out to be. When people went home, they just felt so good, and they had something to carry home, even if it was still wet. They had to carry it. And I think the hardest one of those is the woman who came, and I've had two people come actually who wanted to make something as a tribute to one of their children who had passed away. And that was really hard because it takes me a long time. I have no idea how long. Everybody says, how long did it take you to make that? I have no idea. Do you
You know,
count when I wake up in the middle of the night and think about it? Or
well, I was going to say the one of the things about art is because I like your friend, I don't call myself an artist, but I do
Mhm.
like to play around with color and things like that. But one of the things I like about it is you really kind of lose yourself. It's like getting into
Exactly. Yeah.
flow, that extreme
Hmm.
concentration. You lose track of time.
Hmm.
You're not distracted by things around you. You're
Yeah.
just really in that moment
You're
and
using a
creating things.
different part of your brain.
Yes, and I think, you made a good point about children don't seem to have much time to just be in this era, and
Hmm.
we are all really scheduled people, and I think kids are really scheduled. When I was growing up, sure, I had commitments, like I had to go to school,
Right.
and I played a lot of sports, so, I had to go to
Hmm.
practice and go to the games and things, but other than that, I had a lot of time to, practice
Hmm.
writing. And I did collage when I was in my early teens, and I had
Hmm.
six really large, beautiful collages from using images from fashion magazines and Elmer's glue. I just moved
Yeah.
them around, glued them
Hmm.
up, and each one had a theme. I guess my parents threw them away when I moved out, but it was really fun, really creative. I've spent hours doing that, and
Hmm.
really had a lot of ability to exercise my own imagination that way. And so I love to do things like this. Like last year I, got a lot of creative fulfillment and fun out of picking the colors for the walls in my house, to
Yeah.
use lots of
Hmm.
different colors. And the contractor said, "No, it's unusual. Most of my customers just pick one color for the walls." And I'm like, "Well, what's the point in that?"
Hmm.
It's like if you're
Right.
painting, you might as well have some fun with it, right?
Mhm.
And have some different colors and things like that.
Right.
But so I'm going to ask you one more question before we wrap up. So, what advice would you have for anyone out here listening who wants to tap into that creativity and let their imagination out? What advice would you have for them?
Well, just stick your toe in and do it. And the first thing I would say is it's never too late. As long as you're alive, you can still play. And this is play to me. I started this, well, I was 63 when my husband died. So probably in 2008 was when I started, and I was 64. I'll be 80 in January. So it's
Wow.
been a long time. But I would have never dreamed, I had no idea that this would come of when I started. I mean, I literally said, I want to do collage. Okay, what do I need? I read some books. There are nice workshops out there, like Plaza Arts has some really nice workshops. There's lots of books on it. If you want to get into anything these days, you can. You could go to Michael's. You can find the canvases and stuff for not too much money. But um, I would say that yes, I agree. Creativity takes you to a new place. I think everybody has some, whether and you can't expect to come in and in 4 hours make something that I made, after 17 years of work at it, but you can make something that pleases you.
Right.
And the last thing I'd say is a friend of mine who has been a professional artist all her life, and is a trained artist and everything. And I said, how do you know when you're an artist? So when you're a teacher, you get a credential. When you're a driver, you get a license. How do you know when you're an artist? Is it like when you sell something? And she said, can you stop doing it? And I said, no. And then she said, then you're an artist. So I would say that, if there's something that keeps coming up where you have a little bit of time, and it may be that you like to play with color in some other way, I think this appeals to me more than the fiber did. I still do some of that, but because I can get more texture out of it. I love texture, and I love the colors, and of course yarn, you can do that too. But so it's never too late. And if you're obsessively doing something, or even periodically doing it, and you keep coming back to it, give yourself some time. Try to schedule a little you time, or retire.
Or retire. Yes, we're all
Yeah.
looking for something to do if that day ever comes.
Right. And that's one of the keys, I think, to retirement. If you don't have any interest, you're not going to like it. Mm-hmm. One person I know thought he was going to die during COVID because he was so bored. He couldn't go to work, couldn't go to work, but he didn't have any interests. So that I felt really bad for him. That's too bad.
Wow, that is too bad. I mean, I sometimes think I don't have a lot of interest, but I do have, I probably have more interest than I give myself credit for. So that's wonderful. Well, Shirley, thank you so much for joining me. I think this has been a fun conversation. And as you know, I'm one of your biggest fans.
Oh, thank you.
Love your art, and encourage everybody, especially if you know Shirley personally, look at her art, ask her to schedule a tour for you. So, Shirley, you already shared a lot of great advice. Is there one thought you would like the audience to take away today? And then how could they get in touch with you if they wanted to reach out about your art or anything to do with creativity?
Well, I wanted to add something before I answer that question, that I wanted to thank a lot of nonprofits, because they sometimes are able to make a place for art for amateur artists, because people like me, galleries want to know how you're going to make them rich and famous, so you already need to be rich and famous. But I had like 50 pieces of art in the center that the sports thing that Jack Cook built in by the football stadium and everything. And so I know it takes lots of time, and not everybody has the manpower to do it, but I really have appreciated that. It was like a validation and a chance to, get out in the world and do something. I guess I would just say it's never too late. If you're interested, there's something out there for you. You may have to muck around a little bit to find it, but that's fun too.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun to experiment. I think a lot of people, we live in an age of specialization. And so I think people are afraid to experiment because they think, well, I'm not an official XYZ, whatever,
right.
Fill it in. I try stuff all the time. I'm definitely not a botanist, but I grow things.
Sure.
So, I'm a gardener. So I think that's really inspirational. So, well, Shirley, if somebody wanted to talk to you more about your art, what's a good way they could schedule an appointment?
I think the best would be to email me. It's Shirley, SHIRLEY _storms, STORMS, number 4 at MSN.com.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. Well, I hope you get a lot of contact. I hope the people who saw your art want to see more of it, because like I've said a couple of times already, I've had the privilege of having the tour, and these are some spectacular pieces. And this is from somebody who is a museum rat. I spent a lot of time in museums. I like to go to art galleries. This is some great stuff. So, well, Shirley, thank you again for joining me for this episode on creativity. And to the audience, I hope that this inspires you, not just through the holiday season, but into the next few years, and that you set aside some time, as Shirley has so wisely counseled, to explore your own creativity and imagination. Because by doing that, it refreshes us for the work we do in the nonprofit area, which is so crucial and so important right now, and why we as nonprofit professionals need to focus on constantly looking around, constantly improving ourselves, whether it's through education or learning new skills, and really letting our minds grow and get stronger as well. So we have to go rogue for now, but we'll be back next week with another exciting episode. If you'd like to learn more about Rogue Tulips Consulting and how we can help your organization bloom outside the box, check out our website. We have a services page that includes our fee schedule because we also believe in transparency. If you don't see exactly what you're looking for, let's talk because we could probably work together. If, like myself and Shirley, you are a curious sort and want to learn more about nonprofit management, check out our education program, the 501c League. It is so big, it has its own website. We're working on the 2024 schedule right now, but we are currently offering an ethics course in December and an on demand course that will be available through June of next year. So, on behalf of Shirley and myself, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.